Hello and welcome to Talkin Jake. Myself, Jake Storielli, David Mendelson producing, and welcome to Talkin Jake. June 5th, which means we have more trade deadline rumors. Our friend Jeff Passan just came out with a way too in-depth article. Jeff, just give me some spark notes. Maybe I can be your spark notes for you. We also have NBA Finals are coming up. I guess I won't fully preview that, but I'll give some thoughts where I am on it, maybe where Beebs is on it, and just some stuff I've heard about it that I've been like, oh, interessante. And I just had a funny run-in the street. Hey, thank you to everyone who's been subscribing and listening. Thank you. Welcome. Appreciate it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I've been getting a lot of... So it's funny, living in New York City, bad anecdote to start. It's kind of funny, and it makes sense. During baseball season, I get a lot more love on the streets. I get oh, hey, let's go Yanks. Oh, Jake, John Boy Media. John Boy, love your stuff. Very cool. The fact we're even at this point is pretty wild. Thank you, everyone involved. This year it's getting hotter, and I think it's because the New York Yankees are so good. Haven't had like a clean subway ride home this week. To or fro the office, which again, very nice. Everyone's really cool about it. Got caught up in a Devil's three-way with a couple male Yankee fans on the train on the way home yesterday, who were both pretty hype. Guy I talked to this morning, like, kind of lost his breath and like panicked and was like, couldn't make sentences. Really cool. Not being braggadocious, here's how you know why. I just left for lunch. Leave the office. Young gentleman in our demographic daps me up. Hey, let's go Yanks. Hey, let's go Yanks. Nice standard exchange. And I'm in my head talking to myself. I'm like, and everything we just did, I was like, damn, this has been happening a lot. This is pretty wild. Let's go Yanks, I guess. In that moment, a tall, gorgeous, redheaded woman looks at me and goes, hey, Jake. I'm walking. This is the last person I expect to say hi to me. And I kind of I basically do a take to make sure, like, if I see Jake Gyllenhaal behind me, it was not. By the time we've kind of passed each other, I get kind of throw like a hey, but I kind of keep it moving. I'm on my way to lunch. A little confusing. One of my wife's just friends, Maria, said hi to me. And yeah, I just kind of kept it moving. But yeah, I ended up finding out on the back end. But yeah, pretty funny when it's not someone in our target demo saying hi to me. Just completely blindsided me.
Yeah, got one waiting at Penn Station. This was nearly a month ago. That just tall woman comes in. Hey, big fan. I was like, whoa.
Look at that.
Usually it's a guy who looks just like me.
So, with that silly interaction, another friend of mine, Jeff Passan. Oh, speaking of rude intruders, we'll just delete this. What a bad open to the show. Might start over. Guys. Rudely interrupted by Joe's McFly and Trevor Plouffe. We'll let it ride, I guess. I don't even know. Here we are, people. It's the midweek episode. Like I messaged, loser friend Jeff Passan came out with his early June who will be traded article. And he labeled it, I think this is what's important. He has the unloaders, teams that, without a doubt, whatever happens the next steps of the way, will be trading away their players. I think there's one fringe team on there. Then he goes to hinge teams, similar to fringe teams, but Jeff Passan hasn't been in the dating scene for a little while. Tweeners, which, okay, if we're doing hinge and tweeners, I don't know, man. Seems like that's a pretty similar bucket, pal. likely adders, which is another way of saying tweeners. So call out.
Seems like
Jeff.
you just needed to break up the tweeners.
These are tweeners who, if they keep winning,
20 of the 30 teams are tweeners.
And then your definite adders. Let's start with the unloaders, because this is where supply and demand begins. Business class with me. Welcome to supply and demand. Can I tell you what? The day I learned that in class was like a nice moment. I mean, really not much to learn, but just the fact that like a teacher put it on a slide, I was like, wow, I'm learning about supply and demand. More supply, less demand. More demand, less supply. Anyways, didn't do well in that, so here I am. The Chicago White Sox, sure. They've got a group of veteran pieces that'll fit in elsewhere. Eric Fetty has pitched pretty well for them this year if you need an arm. Tommy Pham in the corner outfield. Will they make the nuclear move? Will be interesting to see. Those would be Luis Robert and Garrett Crochet, who broke out this year. Whenever I see those, I don't really believe it. I guess more so Crochet. I could see Luis Robert happening. Like, this whole team and regime and everything needs a reboot.
And just specifically White Sox, Robert makes some real money, so they're always looking to not pay real money.
Yeah, and but it's tough. I mean, he's making 12.5 this year, 15 next. And then he has team options for 20 and 20, which, like, with his talent, seem like no-brainers. But it's also, I don't know. The more I look at it, it's tough to value that. Like, I don't know if teams necessarily see Luis Robert as $20 million a year player come 2026 and 2027. His injury history is pretty significant. He's only played 8 games this year.
It just got back.
He only has one season of over 100 games. Who's that sound like? Another AL Central center fielder. Not making that comparison, but I just did. But I guess for Crochet and Luis Robert, I don't see the value meeting what teams will be looking for. So let's see. Just got a text from Joe's McFly. Plouffe said, do you want field passes? Yeah, man. Why would I say no to that? Now he's probably going to walk in again. The Colorado Rockies, sure. Unfortunately, this is going to be a fast one because the Rockies have ruined me. We do a trade deadline draft every year. Every year, the Rockies seem like eligible candidates to trade away a currently valuable asset for what may not be a valuable asset. Daniel Bard, what he was doing out of their bullpen. Elias Diaz, the catcher, was the all-star MVP last year. Had a good first half. It's Joe's McFly. You can actually kind of see him dancing in the corner behind BBD, which is just disgusting. Frustrating. The Rockies haven't proven to me that they will trade. So I'm not going to believe in them trading Ryan McMahon, who Jeff Passan notes in his article is beloved by the owner.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Monfort, who is a powerful owner during the negotiation times, he clearly runs the Rockies a little bit differently. And if he likes Ryan McMahon, you can look at his contract and think that's incredible value, or you could look at it and think he's overpaid. I'm guessing the Rockies think it's incredible value, but I don't see them moving from Ryan McMahon. The other options are like young pitchers who are showing some success, Cal Quantrill and Austin Gomber. I just don't see them making a significant move. Because the one significant move they made, they traded Arenado and paid his way. That it's an awful trade. So the Rockies are unfortunately out for me.
And one of the guys they got for paying that money, they're considering trading.
Gomber.
Did you see the other thing Passan said about McMahon later in this article?
he'd be a fit for the Yanks.
Yeah, mentioned being a perfect fit, which I thought might tickle you.
Something I've said for a little bit now.
Yeah, you have.
Los Angeles Angels. Tyler Anderson has been pitching well this year. I mean, if you're looking for a guy that's a starting pitcher that's had different mixes of success at the major league level, he's pitching great this year, is the perfect trade deadline candidate. He will be moved this year. The Angels are actually really exciting for me, and the Angels are normally the opposite of really exciting for me. But here's what the Angels have going for them. Are the Angels willing to make moves? Yes. They added before last trade deadline. Giolito. Who else did they bring in? They brought in a few pieces.
And Ronaldo came in
Ronaldo
within the
Lopez,
Giolito trade.
Who's been magnificent this year.
They got Grichuk.
They had a whole trade deadline where they added, and then they had a whole deadline where they released and let everyone go via waivers. So their front office has shown that they are willing to make moves. They are not in contention this year. They have a lot of young, interesting pieces on their roster between Ohapi, Zach Neto, Shanuel. Joe Adele finally got the call, and he's playing okay. Someone like Taylor Ward. I feel like a team could look at him and say, hey, that's a piece that we could have for a couple of years. He's had mixed success. You'd love to see him in a slightly better environment, but his good has been really good. And Luis Rengifo, who's a player they added, young guy they've tapped into a little bit. For the past about calendar year now, he has been a really good baseball player that value-wise, they could get a nice little return for him, and they have no timeline. So I like the Angels being significant players at this deadline because they've shown me their front office is willing to. And that's before you even get to like Kevin Pillar, Matt Moore, Adam Simber, Hunter Strickland has been really good this year. That they have kind of all the pieces that a team would need. That if you're looking for a 2-for-1, you're looking for an outfielder and a reliever, Angels feel like a good landing spot for that. Miami Marlins, I mean, they already started to sell this season, so you're going to see some of their pieces go, whether it's Josh Bell, Tanner Scott. That gets Yankees fans' ears again. They moved Luis Ariz. You wonder if Jazz Chisholm could be in play. You hear different rumors about him around baseball. Is he beloved in the clubhouse? I don't know. We've daydreamed some clubs for him. And again, that price tag gets interesting. Like if the Marlins are mentally ready to move on from Jazz Chisholm, with the amount of years of control he has left, they can get a very valuable package for him. You already brought in parts for Ariz. Maybe the second rebuild is underway, although they do have a ton of pitching. And Jeff Passan alludes to that Jesus Luzardo could be the best player to technically go at this deadline. Control through the end of the 2026 season. So that's a guy that you're adding for significant years. I've always thought the Orioles would be a fit for him. They've also had injuries this year. John Means out for the season, one or two other guys. With their prospect depth, you can really give just one of those pieces. What do you like, Marlins? Is it Kerstad? Is it Norby? Is it like they've got levels of depth at this point that I've always loved Baltimore and Miami linking up for Luzardo. Let's see if it happens. I think I mentioned Josh Bell. They have other pitchers, too, that I guess if teams want to tap into. Braxton Garrett, Trevor Rogers, Weathers, Cabrera. Hopefully the Marlins are an exciting part of this deadline. Man, really bizarre franchise that they just haven't hit ever. It's been so long. We've talked about them having good young pitching for the duration of talking baseball, like 6 years. And they just haven't done it. Now Trevor Plouffe texting about the field passes. The New York Mets, they sure will be trading. Pete Alonso will be talked about a lot. I guess the Mets deserve some credit. as a franchise that has traded away. We saw them have a crazy deadline last year with Scherzer and Verlander. All the smaller pieces, you'd like to think JD Martinez, Bader, Starling Marte, sure. Luis Severino has kind of tapped back in this year. That's a guy who could be an asset for your team down the stretch. Sean Manaea, another pitcher who he has options for next year. So, I don't know. A team could see that as a lot of upside. I think teams like having that power. And then bullpen pieces, Ottavino, Jake Diekman, some up-and-comers in Reed Garrett and Sean Reed-Foley in their bullpen. Sure. Oakland. I would love if someone went nuclear and went for Mason Miller. The problem is you have to pay, because you're paying for his whole career, essentially. 5-6 years of Mason Miller. What he's shown out of the bullpen, if you're a team that thinks you're in a real window, it'd be a sick ad. I mean, no one likes giving up real prospect capital for relievers. I don't know. Like, no teams are locked for being great. But imagine if the Baltimore Orioles added Mason Miller. Be like, okay.
They just have him in the fold for a little bit.
Be a little weird when Batista gets back. I don't know. Our Yankees probably wouldn't do it, but how cool would that be? How hype would this office be if Mason Miller got traded for?
We'd be pretty stoked for that first game.
Man. They have some other pitching options. The one to circle for them for me is Brent Rooker. He had a huge first half last year, fell off a little bit. He's been mauling this year. He's been the best DH in the American League. You get years of control. I think he can survive a corner outfield spot depending where your team plays. That you could potentially be adding, like if he's having a full-blown later career breakout, which, I mean, he was an all-star last year. I mean, he finished with an 817 OPS. We talk about his second half like he died, but that's a nice year. And he currently has a 921 OPS this year. So, for me, that would be a team that cares about money, that's looking for a home run hit without giving up a ton of capital. So let's see, who would fall in that list? Blue Jays panic move. Cleveland feels like they're always looking for hitting. Mm-hmm. Kansas City Royals, that's kind of fun.
That could be fun.
Does Brent Rooker not have Milwaukee vibes? But all they do is hit at this point that I don't even know if they need him. Or Seattle Mariners in division. I have Brent Rooker being one of the better pieces traded this deadline. At the deadline, I have no idea where the rest of his career goes. But for 2 seasons now, 186 games, he's been 256, 340 OBP, 506 slug, and 846 OPS. That's an impact piece. With the right lineup, looking to add a little depth for cheap, that feels like a risk some team is very much going to talk themselves into. Earliest free agent for him, 2028. So let's say this is real. You're a team that's scouting him. You believe Brent Rooker is the real deal. You're adding a guy to the middle of your lineup for 4 years. All those franchises that have to be a little more valuable, Brent Rooker should be on your radar, and you should be willing to give up 1 or 2 okay prospects for that potential length. And I think they don't have to be crazy prospects because there's a chance he's a DH, and just that value is really tough.
29-year-old wrong side of the platoon DH. I would imagine it's not a crazy trade.
But if
obviously not making crazy money now, if you're a team that might be worried about what the end of that looks like, you have options every year.
Like last year was his first full opportunity. This is a guy that was a former top 100 prospect. I mean, not necessarily flashy, but I don't know. If you're a team, those teams I mentioned, Guardians, Reds, I don't know, Toronto, do you need bats? I have Brent Rooker moving this year, and I have a team loving the deal at the start of it. The other, Jeff Passan's sellers list. I did the Mets. The one borderline hinge team that Jeff Passan didn't label hinge team is the Washington Nationals, who have been playing a fun brand of baseball. They've kind of stood one or two games at least below 500. And it turns into a hope thing. I mean, they're 27-33 now, so maybe Brother Jeff is right. But either way, with their timeline, they've got some young prospects they're going to call up at the end of this year, and their assets that they would trade are very much guys that I don't think you look at the future of the Nationals and say they're going to be here, except Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas, we've talked about the past couple years. He's really been playing well. I guess if there's a team that is bought into him and they're willing to pay the right price, that becomes an interesting conversation because some people think the Nats are in play for next year. And if they are, Lane Thomas would be a part of that. Their bullpen, empty it. Bullpen changes so fast that Kyle Finnegan, Hunter Harvey, Derek Law with a shout-out. Hunter Harvey and Kyle Finnegan could be impact pieces on your back end. Cash those chips in. See what you could turn them into. Trevor Williams, friend of the pod. He's been pitching amazing. Jesse Winker, friend of the pod, has tapped into something again. That, listen, do it, Nats. I think it could be 1 year, if not 2 years, that you're like, thank God we cashed some of those chips in. Because with how relievers can either get burnt out or hurt or other, and the way that you can find relievers, that if you can turn these guys into different prospect capital, it could be huge for hopefully the next step in Nats baseball, which we went from World Series to irrelevant very quickly. Very quickly. I mean, Soto, Trey Turner, Scherzer, Corbin, Strasburg. Like, they had a big old payroll, and they were competitive. And they've been out of the mix for a while. But it seems like that second wave is coming. Let me text Trevor quick. Just have press pass. Okay, so those are those teams. The hinge teams, I guess I'm going to treat, I said I was going to be rude about, but that's not the right term. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I think, are going to be in the mix. I think they're getting more in the mix. I said on Talkin Baseball, I think by June 16th, they'll technically be a wild card team. This is also a team that last year made the playoffs while being under 500 in August. So, yeah, the Snakes are going to believe things would have to get really, really ugly. They've also been hit with the injury bug pretty good. Their top 3 starters are on the shelf right now. Their center fielder, their shortstop. Talk about strength up the middle. Snakes have been snake bitten this year. But I think with coming off of last year, I think they're going to believe, and I'd be really shocked if they sold. Boston Red Sox, I think no. I think they're in it. They're currently the first team out of the playoffs. I think that's a baseball town that's been looking for some juice. Their pitching has been so good that you almost can't give up on that. Like, for a team that plays in Fenway Park, historically one of the top 3 hitting parks, to get the pitching they're getting. Another team that's been getting hit by the injury bug. I don't know. I just don't see the Sox doing it, although their pitching assets could be valuable. But we've already talked. There's pitching to be had out there this year. And I don't think who the Red Sox would be selling pitcher-wise would really be... It's not like they're adding someone to the top of the market. That it's like, whoa.
I don't think they have anybody who's like any team's number one.
If I'm willing to pay for Jesus Luzardo, I'm willing to pay for Nick Pivetta. Although he's had some big game moments, more so out of the bullpen. I don't know. I think with that Red Sox pitching, if you're there, you're there. Tigers are always interesting. They've hung out around 500. They've been looking for a better product. Jack Flaherty. Now that becomes very interesting. At certain points, he's been leading the AL in strikeouts this year. If you don't have a lot of hope, which the Tigers have some, and they're going for it now. Like, they sent down Torkelson. They're like, we can't deal with this right now. We got to get some more wins if we want to stay in the race. So Jeff Passan, great hinge team. Mm-hmm. Finally. I'm going to call him. I don't call Jeff Passan a lot. I don't know if I'm going to tell him that I'm recording, which, is illegal in some states. But worst case, I'll just make BBD delete it. Calling Jeff Passan. Hope he doesn't call me a bad word. He probably won't even answer.
If he hasn't picked up by now.
Wonder if he's coming to New York this weekend. Yankees, Dodgers? Hi, you've reached Jeff Passan.
My phone number's cool.
One more ring. Yeah, if he has a phone number voicemail, we're having a bad time.
Hi, this is Jeff Passan.
Oh, my God. Oh, from ESPN. Get out of here, dude. We'll see if we get a response from him. My phone also doesn't show when people call me. I think there's a group of people that are mad at me. Because my calls just don't pop up on my phone. Really bad. It's a really bad feature. Anyways, back into the article. Houston, I've talked about them way too much. You know the whole deal with them. The more and more other people talk about it, the more and more they say they're not going to sell. They said that someone in their front office is from the Braves team that did all those small trades at the deadline in 2021. And they came back and won the World Series. So they think worst case, Houston will do some small moves like that, hoping a couple things click. I don't know. Houston needs to show me more. They did have a really nice comeback win on Monday night. That maybe this is the spark, and they've got a weak schedule the rest of the way. That maybe I've already wasted enough of my lungs on them. Hinge team, the Rays. I'm going to fade the fade on that, and I think they're going to have players available. The Rays just operate differently.
If the Rays were on a 100-win pace, they might be selling guys.
Everyone is on the board. Randy Arozarena, who got off to an awful start this season. They've got relievers, Fairbanks, Adams. Ahmed Rosario, been really good to them on a one-year deal. The Rays are open for business. You've always known that. The other hot team to talk about has been the Toronto Blue Jays. Sure, you could look at the veterans, Justin Turner, Kevin Kiermaier, IKF, who's slugging on par with Guerrero and well ahead of Bichette this season. Jeff Passan quote. Accurate. Statistically accurate. Will one or Vlad Bo's got to go this year. I think the Blue Jays are about to have the stake driven through their chest, he said dramatically. That's a phrase I use a lot, and I don't believe in it. I haven't watched a lot of like vampire stuff. I have no idea why that's a go-to for me. The Blue Jays have lost 3 out of 4. And they just got beat up by Baltimore the past 2 games. 7-2, 10-1. BBD, we follow the Yankees pretty tightly.
Mm-hmm. More than we follow any other team, we can say that.
Do you remember when the Yankees season ended last year? It ended.
When they were swept by the Braves?
The Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves, who looked like one of the better teams in baseball, a historic offense. The Yankees played them and were just not even in the fight. This was August, but the Yankees weren't in the fight. If Baltimore the next 2 days does that again to Toronto, I think that's game over. All these teams use different models. Toronto is currently at 4% to make the playoffs, less than 1% to win the World Series. This front office has done a lot of moves, spent a lot of money. They fired 2 managers. We're up against it. I think one of those guys gets moved. And that would be exciting for baseball. Hitting still speaks. I think both of those guys would love a change of scenery, and they don't know it yet. That might sound like old, obnoxious. I don't know. But I think one of those guys going to either one of these great teams and just being a guy on the team. If Bo Bichette went to the Dodgers, I guess you could put anyone on the Dodgers. You put me and BBD on the Dodgers, and the Dodgers would be set up pretty good.
We'd feel comfortable.
But imagine you put Bo Bichette in like the 6 hole for the Dodgers. It goes one of 2 ways, right? It breaks him mentally, and he's like, wait, I'm not a guy? Or the pressure's off, just do what you do, and I think we could see the best version of him.
And either of these guys, if they were to decide to move them, would be talent level wise, we think the best position player to go at the deadline. Probably they'd be on the short list.
Yeah, again,
Like unlike the Red Sox we talked about before, like Blue Jays, you can add a name who either those 2 guys, some team's going to say that's the number 1 guy they want.
A guy that could change your offense. Vladdy can be as impactful as a hitter in baseball, although that 2021 is a little bit of an outlier. He had a great last month and kind of kicked into gear. So, he's Vladdy Jr. He's still sneaky close to, like, Hall of Fame pace. Tweeners, which, again, is different than Hinge, Jeff. The Chicago Cubs. I don't know, man. To tell that franchise you're selling again at the deadline, I don't know if they have the heart to do that. Shed the remaining $40 million on Ian Happ's contract. That used to be a dream for the Yankees. Now don't need him, bro. We got outfielders. Go play elsewhere. I don't see the Cubs selling. I think that fan base thought this year was like the year, like we're back, go Cubs go. They thought that for 2 months. That to even have them in the tweener area of this article, I think Cub fans would snap. Didn't keep Rizzo. Like, this is a whole new team. I don't know. Cubs fans, if you're listening, let me know, like, where you guys are, state of your franchise, because it's been a roller coaster. They were supposed to be a Shohei team.
Yeah.
That never really, but I don't know if anyone was in on that. Minnesota Twins. I think they're going to stand pat. They've got some weird trades they've lost recently. Spencer Steer, Christian Encarnacion. They've had trades they won. Joe Ryan, Nelson Cruz, as highlighted by Jeff Passan. I think they want to see what a healthy version of their team looks like. Royce Lewis and Buxton are back. If anything, they'll tweak. So I guess if a tweaker is a tweener, Jeff Passan is gone. Pirates, I don't know.
They'll for sure mess around, but
yeah, don't care.
I just have no read on them.
Giants, circle them. Matt Chapman's been playing really well. If they fall out of it, they're there. This is another franchise that has told their team we're like their fan base, we're ready to win, we're ready to go, we want Judge, we want Correa. You know, they ended up with the variety pack that Snell's been hurt, Jung-Hoo Lee has been hurt. If they can get value from players, I think they do it and move on. And no real reason not to. St. Louis, man, blown 2 games to Houston, blew 1 game to Houston, lost another. Would Helsley be great somewhere? Sure, he'd be great on any team. I don't know. I think that front office and head coach, they're hunkered down and trying to stay around it as long as they can. The likely adders starts to get a little bit of fun. Your AL Central guard dogs and Royals. I see both of them adding. I think they've been good enough to do it. It's just I don't believe enough in Cleveland's front office to make an impactful move. In this article, they daydream of Bo Bichette in Cleveland. I'd like it. But I have no reason to believe they'll do that. Because then what? Does that mean they're going to flip Bichette in another year? Like, that's kind of what this front office has done. Royals, I'm a sneaky Royal guy. I just had a creepy smile come over my face just because I said the Royals and that they're winning. And their front office operates differently. That they are going to be in the mix. Give me a Royals wild move. I don't know what it is yet. Brewers, no comment. I mean, they're so into themselves, and rightfully so, that they don't have to do anything at the deadline. Everyone's hitting. They grow pitching on trees. I mean, they're closer to the Rays of being like, they could soft sell someone and be like, we don't care. We're going to win the division. Brewers fans, maybe that's not what you want to hear.
It's what they've done.
Padres, I don't know. They'll do something weird. They'll do small veteran moves. They have the core of talent. They just need to add around it. Texas Rangers are probably just waiting for guys to get healthy. Scherzer, Molly, DeGrom.
Yeah, they'll do some sort of supplement ad.
Maybe one more veteran somewhere, just as insurance to that lineup. They've already added Robbie Grossman back, you'll recall. And then your definite adders, Braves, Orioles, Dodgers, Yankees, Phillies, Seattle. Yankees are sitting pretty. They don't have a big wish list. At this point, we would currently be shocked. The corner infield has been something put on our radar. I think I can finally admit this. Susan Waldman at spring training was just like, Yankees hype train was going. How's everyone feeling? She was like, I'm just a little nervous about the corners. Those DJ and Rizzo are a little older. And everyone did a head tilt and was like, yeah, I guess so. Like, DJ hasn't been the special player he's been in a while. Rizzo was coming off a weird injury. There was no shots fired at those guys. It was just like...
It was the 2 positions with the fewest internal options, too.
That I'm happy Ryan McMahon was listed in this article, but I just don't believe it. Because, God, a lefty swinging good defensive third baseman at Yankee Stadium, I can work with that. Phillies are cracked, dude. They don't need much, but they're also a team that could do the nuke move of a Luis Robert or a Kyle Tucker. You can't really rule them out on anything. And then the Mariners. It's the team Jeff Passan finished with. We'll be very interested to see if they do a chips all-in move, and what does that even look like for them. It's kind of not what they're known for, although they brought in Luis Castillo. But they did resign him. So, I don't know. Like, if Seattle trades for Kyle Tucker, that means they plan on resigning him. That means they plan on giving him $200+ million. In my head, it's hard to process all of that. That's more of an ownership thing. If they're willing to do that, that would be awesome for Seattle. Would Houston trade Kyle Tucker to Seattle? Probably not. So I'm not ruling any of that in. Dodgers and O's. Same, but different. Even throw the Braves in there. Could the Braves be a dark horse to do something crazy? Always. the GM quote Jeff Passan brought in was, Alex is always a buyer. The Braves will be wheeling and dealing. They need some offensive juice. Ronald Acuna Jr.'s out for the year. I'd assume they go small pieces again, like that 21 Braves team that rallied and started going. And the Baltimore Orioles, I mentioned them with Jesus. Man, like I'm gonna list these depth names that you may not have heard of that are guys that could cash in for assets. Cade Povich, Chase McDermott, Heston Kjerstad, Connor Norby, Dylan Beavers, Enrique Bradfield Jr. And I mean, this is not only are we not listing Jackson Holiday, but Passan says Kobe Mayo and Sam Basallo are off the table. These are guys that probably aren't even on your radar. They've got layers of prospects. Layers. The Orioles cashed in for Corbin Burns. Will they cash in elsewhere? And then it's to what degree? But man, they are a dangerous team with new ownership. That I cannot wait to see their next moves. And that's kind of what I've got. So I'm sorry Jeff Passan is rude and ignores phone calls. It'll be, one of those, I joked about the tweener teams, and I tried to give you kind of my outlook on them. One of those teams is going to be ass and have to sell. Like even my snakes that I defended. If the wheels fall off and your hands are forced, your hands are forced. Going back to last year, it felt like there was so many teams that weren't going to trade. It felt like we said that a lot, right? Who ended up getting traded at last year's deadline?
White Sox moved their guys. It was a weird deadline.
Look what you done. Because the Angels were buyers, then sellers.
Mets moved their guys.
The Mets moved their guys. I don't know. It felt like it was the expanded playoffs. A lot of teams are in it. It wasn't the juiciest of deadlines. This year smells a little better to me. I think we got good teams with needs. I think last year the guaranteed sellers didn't have a lot of juice. That it was just kind of like, if they're selling, what are you buying? This year's sellers already have some juice, and that's before the tweener teams get involved.
Yeah, before one or two more teams fall into the group.
And they're the pieces you'd want. It's okay, starting pitching, relief pitching, every team's looking for that. And then a couple of those, again, the Taylor Ward, Brent Rookers, feel like that's a win at this deadline. That's someone that both teams can end up happy. You give us a couple chips for Taylor Ward, you might be able to tap into an 800 OPS outfielder. That's a really good ball player. And then I already gave my Brent Rooker speech for too long. So we're getting excited for the deadline. And if we're being honest, getting excited for playoff basketball. Hell, they're calling it the championship. Celtics, Mavericks, they tip off tomorrow. It's no secret or lie. I get most of my basketball knowledge from Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons this time of year. I'm a year-round Russillo guy. I'm a playoff basketball Simmons man. Celtics, as if you guys... I tell people, honestly, I'm a New York sports fan. Boston can evoke emotions in me that were brainwashed into me as a child. Love the city. Some of those sports franchises get to me. Celtics are pretty big favorites in the series. 6.5-point favorites in game one. It is a fun case of Dallas does have the best player, which in their current playoff matchups has mattered. And the Dallas Mavericks are a new team. Since they've added P.J. Washington, Bill Simmons kept laughing. How they turned P.J. Washington into Robert Horry. Is that my Bill Simmons voice? I'm sorry to Bill for that. I didn't mean that. And they added the big man Gafford from Washington. So they added two-fifths of their starting lineup at the deadline. That's a very different trade. The other 2/5 of that lineup are Luka and Kyrie. The Kyrie Boston stuff is incredible, and I think it's gonna be content that'll be remembered forever, whether good or bad. Kristaps Porzingis is a big wild card in this series. He has not played since the first round. I think he got banged up. First round, they didn't need him against.
He got hurt during the second again.
During the second, they didn't need him against the Pacers. He's planning to play. They're not sure if he's 100%. A little bit of a wild card. I mean, a true stretch 5 rim protector. Without him, they don't have a real rim protector, and that leads to Horford playing a ton of minutes. We've seen what Luka can do. He's just going to knife up your defense. He's going to get his shot. He hasn't had the bad shooting game in a while. Kyrie had one. Brown and Tatum, I'm excited to find out. I'll be honest with you. Tatum, and maybe because he's like a low-key personality, or again, maybe it's a Boston, New York thing kicking in. Sometimes I'm just not about Tatum. Russillo's theory on it is that he'll never be the number one guy in the league, so everyone just kind of like shrugs it off a little bit. I'm very interested to see the next part of their dynamic. The Celtics could roll. They've been one of, if not the best team this year. Everyone kind of assumed they were going to see the Nuggets, and everyone liked the Nuggets over them. Nuggets ain't there. And the Mavericks handily took care of the Wolves, and they showed how much matchups matter. That the Wolves had the matchup on Denver. The Mavs had the matchup on the Wolves. That the Celtics are going to be able to throw Tatum and Brown at Luka. Tatum, I would love if we're sitting here in a week or two and Tatum really affects Luka, because almost nobody in the league can. That would be sick. That'd be sick for Luka. Like, we were giving Lou Dort his props for holding Luka to 24 a game or whatever it was. Jaylen Brown, what's the next part of his conversation? Is he a great Robin? Is he Batman Part 2? He just won the conference finals MVP. I love Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is one of those guys that just plays the game the right way. It's crazy that he ended up on the Celtics, and maybe he was the missing piece. Like, Drew Holiday, one of the smartest, just great all-around basketball players, subbing in for essentially Marcus Smart on this team. And again, no shots fired at Marcus Smart. I love his energy. He's like my true player comp if we played pickup basketball. There's highs and lows. Ball would end up in his hands a lot late in the game. And I think between him and Drew Holiday offensively, you'd much rather have Drew Holiday making that decision or shot if he really needs to. But they've got the guys. And I'm interested to see Derek White. Like, Derek White has been an interesting combo because he kind of didn't look the part at first. And he's a guy that gets buckets in droves. Also, last playoffs, he turned off for a little bit. And he is an impact piece for the Celtics. So, I have been tough with my actual heart on this one because I will be rooting the Mavericks. I do think the Mavericks at plus 205 to win the series, that seems a little extreme for me. I think this Mavericks team is very different from the second half of the season. I think the Celtics, with their experience, they've been waiting for this. I still don't love Mazzulla, the coach. I know he's kind of crazy. There's some weird, he watches the movie The Town a lot, like multiple times a week or something. Maybe it's all wrong. Maybe the Celtics are a great run franchise. Maybe they're about to win this easily. Maybe Luka's next. Maybe Kyrie is one of the best Batmen ever. And maybe this Mavs team is going to deserve like an all-time trade deadline award, and Luka is the next guy in the league. Celtics should be the favorite. If I genuinely had to bet, it would be on the Mavericks. which is a little ironic because I'm normally a happiness hedge guy, that I would bet the Celtics to win. When they win, I'm happy I get money. I'm sad the Celtics won. I think I'm going to put a little bit on the Mavericks. Think about what we were saying about the Minnesota Timberwolves, that they were one of the best defensive teams ever, and are they breaking basketball? They handled the Wolves easily. The Celtics haven't been challenged. The Celtics haven't been challenged at all in the playoffs. And this is a team, they lost to the Heat last year. I know there's a lot of fluky stuff about that. And maybe I'm just a straight-up hater. Just a brilliantly rude hater. But also, let's say KP's foot acts up. You're going to have Horford out there a lot. And what Luka's doing has the potential to be special. So I'm at grips with the Celtics winning. They are probably going to win. Vegas line, I'm into Dallas. Boy, is Luka and Kyrie are going to be so hated. Luka complains about every call. It's dramatic and kind of bad. And then Kyrie, I mean, Boston's going to have some fun with that one. The other thing I'll say, if Boston wins, the other thing that's going to keep me sane, Boston Celtics are one of the great franchises in sports history. When was the last time they won the NBA title, BBD?
08.
08, 09?
I think it was the 08 finals.
You know, the baseball team I support, all-time great team, they haven't won it since 09. The Celtics and Yanks have more comparisons than I like to comment about. Besides the 90s dynasty. Sorry about that. Really good franchises year in, year out. Haven't won a title in a little bit. If the Celtics win, I'm just going to pocket that as a weird New York, I have mental problems thing, but the Yanks are going to win. So, anything else, Beebs?
I think that's it. Wake and Jake is a production of Dan Patrick Productions, John Boy Media, and Workhouse Media.
Weird Ep, thank you.